the head of Earth's Interstellar Relations Division, a department created mostly for political show, had never expected to be woken for an actual first contact scenario. "Read here," he mumbled, still half asleep. "Sir, you need to come in immediately," said the voice of his second-in-command. "We've received a transmission. Not from Earth. Not from anywhere in our solar system." Reed sat up, suddenly wide awake. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. The Global Space Agency headquarters buzzed with activity despite the early hour. Scientists rushed back and forth between monitoring stations, their faces a mix of excitement and disbelief. Reed pushed through the crowd to the main control room, where Dr. Lisa Park, the lead communications expert, worked frantically at her console. "What do we have?" Reed asked, looking at the scrolling data on the main screen. Dr. Park turned, her eyes wide. "It's a language package, sir. They're teaching us how to talk to them." "They?" Reed raised an eyebrow. "The Galactic Council," she replied, pointing to a symbol that repeatedly appeared in the transmission, a spiral with 37 small dots arranged in a pattern. Within hours, the world's best linguists and computer scientists had begun decoding the alien language package. It was designed brilliantly, starting with mathematical constants and building up to complex concepts. By the end of the week, they had established basic communication. The message was clear: Earth was not alone. The galaxy teemed with intelligent life, organized under the governance of the Galactic Council, a federation of 37 spacefaring species that maintained peace and order throughout the Milky Way. 2 months later, Reed stood in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by the leaders of Earth's most powerful nations. On the main screen, the alien being who had introduced himself as Ambassador Thelos addressed the room. Thelos had a roughly humanoid shape, though his blue-tinted skin and 4 arms marked him as clearly non-human. "We have watched your civilization with great interest," Thelos said, his words translated through the now-refined communication system. "You have progressed remarkably quickly. The Council believes you are ready to join our community of worlds." The President of the United States leaned forward. "And what would membership in this council mean for Earth?" Thelos's mouth, a horizontal slit that barely moved when he spoke, curved slightly upward in what Reed assumed was a smile. "Benefits beyond your imagination, Madam President. We offer technology that would end your energy crisis, cure most diseases, and allow you to travel between stars. In return, we ask only for reasonable access to some of your planet's unique resources and your cooperation in maintaining galactic security." Reed watched as the world leaders exchanged glances. He could practically see the calculations happening behind their eyes. The political advantage of being in power when humanity joined a galactic civilization, the military implications, the economic benefits. "This is the opportunity of a millennium," the Chinese premier said. The European Union president nodded. "We would be fools to reject such an offer." Only the Indian prime minister seemed cautious. What sort of military cooperation would be expected? Thelos waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "Nothing burdensome. The galaxy is largely peaceful, but occasionally, primitive species emerge that pose a threat to established order. We simply ask that all member worlds contribute to our peacekeeping forces." Reed felt a slight chill at the ambassador's words, though he couldn't explain why. Dr. Anna Miller watched the press conference from her lab at the Pacific Xenobiology Research Center. As the world leaders announced the dawn of a new era and their intention to accept the Council's invitation, she studied Thelos's body language on the screen. Something felt wrong. Miller had spent 15 years in military intelligence before shifting to xenobiology. She had developed a knack for spotting liars, and something about Ambassador Thelos triggered those old instincts. "Computer, replay the ambassador's statement about military cooperation," she commanded. The AI complied, and Miller watched again as Thelos dismissed concerns about military involvement. "Freeze and enhance his eyes during that statement," she said. The image zoomed in on Thelos's strangely lidded eyes. To most observers, they would appear calm and friendly. But Miller noticed the subtle narrowing, the quick dilation of his pupils, signs that in humans would indicate deception. Of course, she reminded herself, alien biology might not follow human patterns. She was projecting human characteristics onto a completely different species. Still, she couldn't shake her unease. Miller picked up her secure comm unit and called the only person she knew with the clearance to listen to her concerns. "Read here," came the tired voice. "James, it's Anna. We need to talk about the council. Something's not right." There was a pause on the line. "You too. I thought I was being paranoid. Meet me at the old place. 1 hour," Miller said, then ended the call. Reed found Miller waiting at their usual booth in the back of Joe's Diner, a place they had often met during their brief relationship years ago, before work had pulled them in different directions. "You look like you haven't slept," Reed said, sliding into the booth. "Neither have you," Miller replied. "But I have a reason. Look at this." She pushed a tablet across the table. On it was a complex analysis of the council's communications. "I ran linguistic pattern analysis on everything they sent us. There are subtle inconsistencies in their narrative. When they talk about their history, certain events have shifting timelines. When they discuss their member species, some are mentioned only once and never again." Reed studied the data. This could just be translation errors. "Maybe," Miller admitted, "but there's more. I analyzed the technical specifications of the devices they want us to build to communicate with their approaching ship. Hidden in the designs are components that have no apparent function for communication, but would be perfect for surveillance." Reed looked up sharply. "You're saying they want us to build our own monitoring devices?" "That's exactly what I'm saying." Miller leaned forward. "And here's the most disturbing part. I've been reviewing astronomical data from the past century. Multiple times, we've observed distant star systems suddenly going dark, their electromagnetic emissions simply stopping. 3 of these events align with regions Thelos mentioned as having joined the council." Reed felt his blood run cold. "You think they're not here to welcome us, but to—" "I don't know what they're here for," Miller interrupted. "But I know we shouldn't rush to embrace them without understanding their true intentions." The diner's bell jingled as the door opened, and both of them instinctively tensed. But it was just a late-night customer looking for coffee. "We need more information," Reed said quietly. "The first council diplomatic vessel arrives in 3 months. Until then, I want you to assemble a small team. People you trust absolutely. Keep investigating, but tell no one." Miller nodded. "And what will you do?" Reed stared into his untouched coffee. "I'll keep smiling for the cameras and prepare for their arrival. But I'll also make sure we have contingency plans, just in case humanity's first contact isn't as friendly as everyone hopes." Outside the diner, celebration fireworks lit up the night sky, celebrating humanity's upcoming membership in the Galactic Council. Neither Reed nor Miller joined in the cheers echoing through the streets. They both knew that mankind might be walking blindly into a trap, one that had perhaps snapped shut on many civilizations before them. The world celebrated. News channels showed nothing but the upcoming arrival of the Council's diplomatic vessel. Children drew pictures of Ambassador Thelos and his 4 arms. Toy companies rushed to create alien plushies. Politicians gave speeches about humanity's bright future among the stars. But in a small, unmarked building on the outskirts of Seattle, Dr. Anna Miller and her hastily assembled team worked in shadows. "Show me the Kepler 438 system again," Miller said, pointing to one of the many screens that lined their makeshift command center. Tom Wilson, a disheveled astronomer who had been pulled from his university position by Reed's secret orders, pulled up the data. "This is Kepler 438 in 2078, he said, showing a graph of radio emissions from the distant star system. "A clear pattern of artificial signals, likely from a civilization at roughly our technological level." He swiped the screen. "And this is Kepler 438 in 2079. 1 month after their signals changed to match what we now know as the Council's communication pattern. The graph flatlined. "Nothing," Miller whispered. "Absolutely nothing." It could be that they switched to more advanced communication methods, offered Jane Porter, a communications specialist who had previously worked for the military. "Then where's the evidence of that technology?" Wilson countered. "No neutrino emissions, no quantum entanglement signatures, nothing we would expect from a more advanced civilization." Miller stared at the data. "How many systems show this pattern?" "7 that we've confirmed," Wilson replied. "All within the last century, all following the same pattern. Regular transmissions, then contact with what appears to be the Council. Then, silence." The room fell quiet. No one wanted to say what they were all thinking. "We need more," Miller finally said. "This is concerning, but not conclusive. Tom, keep digging through the astronomical records. Jane, I want you to focus on decoding any non-council transmissions from those regions before they went dark. There might be warnings we've missed." As her team dispersed to their tasks, Miller's secure comm unit buzzed. It was Reed. "We need to meet," his message read. "The usual place. 1 hour." Reed looked worse than the last time Miller had seen him. Dark circles hung under his eyes, and his normally crisp uniform was slightly rumpled. "I've been reviewing the technical specifications they sent," he said without preamble as he slid into the booth at Joe's diner. "You were right. The communication devices contain monitoring systems far beyond what they've disclosed." Miller nodded. "We found more, James. Multiple civilizations that went silent after Council contact." Reed ran a hand through his graying hair. "I've managed to place a few trusted people on the Earth's first delegation team. The President selected Marcus Torres to lead it." "The United Earth President. Do you trust him?" Miller asked. "Torres is a politician, but he's not stupid. If presented with clear evidence, he'll act in Earth's best interest." Miller wasn't so sure. Politicians often defined best interest differently than ordinary people. "There's something else," Reed continued, lowering his voice further. "The Deep Space Monitoring Station on Mars picked up a transmission 2 days ago. It wasn't from the Council." Miller leaned forward. "Who then?" "We don't know. It was badly degraded, using a frequency range we barely have the technology to detect. The message was fragmented, but it mentioned Earth specifically, and something called the Harvest." A chill ran down Miller's spine. "Did you report this to your superiors?" Reed gave her a wry smile. "Officially, I sent it up the chain as a probable sensor malfunction. Unofficially, I had a copy of the data sent to your team. Jane Porter should be receiving it now." Miller's comm unit buzzed as if on cue. She glanced down to see a message from Jane. "You need to see this. Now." When Miller returned to their hidden base, she found her team huddled around the main display. Jane Porter's fingers flew across the keyboard as she worked. "What do you have?" Miller asked. "The Mars transmission," Jane replied without looking up. "It took some doing, but I managed to recover more of the message than Reed's people did. It's still fragmented, but..." She hit a final key, and a distorted voice filled the room. "Earth. Danger. Council is not. They harvested our world. Thousands of years. False promises. Technology is a trap. They are coming for you. The harvest." Static overtook the message for several seconds before a final, clearer phrase emerged. "Flee. For your lives." The room fell silent. "Can we trace the origin?" Miller finally asked. Tom Wilson shook his head. "Not precisely. It came from the direction of the Ta-CD system, but the signal was bounced several times. Whoever sent it didn't want to be found. Or couldn't risk being found," Miller mused. "Could this be a hoax?" Jane shook her head. "The transmission uses quantum-encrypted channels that we've only theorized. No human has this technology yet." Miller paced the room, her mind racing. So we have a mysterious warning from an unknown species, multiple civilizations going dark after Council contact, and hidden surveillance tech in their gifts to us. What do we do? Wilson asked. Miller stopped pacing. We need to get access to the Council's systems. If they're hiding something, we need proof. Solid, undeniable proof that even the politicians can't ignore. How? Jane asked. We can't exactly hack an alien network we barely understand. Miller smiled grimly. No, but the delegation to the Council's regional headquarters leaves in 3 weeks. And thanks to Reed, we have people on that ship. She turned to the team. Tom, I need you to build something small enough to be smuggled aboard, but powerful enough to capture and analyze any data it encounters. Jane, prepare a crash course on potential Council encryption methods. And what will you be doing? Wilson asked. Miller headed for the door. I'm going to make sure our delegation knows what to look for when they arrive at the Council station, even if I have to break into the President's office to do it. As Earth's first delegation prepared to depart for the Proxima Centauri system, where the Council maintained its regional headquarters, celebrations reached a fever pitch. The specially built ship, constructed with helpful guidance from Council engineers, gleamed in the morning sun as dignitaries gave their final speeches. From the shadows of a nearby hangar, Miller watched President Torres, and his team waved to the crowds. Reed stood beside her, his face grim. Did your people get the device on board? She asked quietly. Reed nodded. Engineer Wilson's scanner is hidden in the delegation's main communication array. If there's something to find, they'll find it. And the warning? I managed a private meeting with Torres yesterday. He listened, but I'm not sure he believed me. Reed sighed. Politicians see what they want to see. And right now, all Torres can see is his place in history as the leader who brought humanity to the stars. They watched as the delegation boarded the ship. How long until they reached the Council station? Miller asked. The Council's drive technology will get them there in just under 2 weeks, Reed replied. That's 2 weeks for us to find more evidence. As the ship lifted off, disappearing into the bright blue sky, Miller couldn't shake the feeling that Earth had just sent its leaders straight into the lion's den. Let's hope they come back with answers, she said, because I think we're running out of time. What neither Miller nor Reed could see was the small object that detached from the Council observer ship in orbit. It descended quietly through Earth's atmosphere, a tiny metallic seed carrying something that was neither fully machine nor fully biological. It landed silently in a remote forest, burrowed into the soil, and began to grow. The countdown to harvest had begun. The massive Council station hung in space like a glittering metal flower, its petals spreading outward from a central hub. Each petal represented a different section: habitats for various species, research facilities, diplomatic quarters, and more. The human delegation ship approached slowly, dwarfed by the station's immense size. Inside the ship, President Marcus Torres straightened his formal jacket as he prepared to make history. He would be the first human to officially set foot on an alien structure, the first to shake hands, or whatever the equivalent might be, with multiple alien species. Remember the diplomatic protocols, his chief advisor whispered. Bow to the Americans, keep distance from the Vox, and I've memorized them all, Torres said confidently. This moment has been prepared for since we received their first message. Nothing will go wrong. Engineer Tom Wilson, the quiet man specially placed on the mission by Commander Reed, kept his eyes on his monitoring equipment. The scanning device he had smuggled aboard was working perfectly, silently mapping and analyzing every signal that passed through the ship's systems. So far, it had found nothing unusual. But they hadn't docked yet. The welcome ceremony was overwhelming. Dozens of alien species lined the grand hall of the Council station, each more strange and wonderful than the last. Some were vaguely humanoid. Others resembled nothing Earth scientists had ever imagined. The air filled with a cacophony of translation devices as greetings were exchanged. Ambassador Thelos stood at the center, his 4 arms spread wide in welcome. President Torres, honored delegation from Earth, we welcome you to Station Proxima, the Galactic Council's regional headquarters for this sector of the galaxy. Torres stepped forward, his practiced speech ready. On behalf of all humanity, we thank you for this historic invitation. As the diplomatic pleasantries continued, Engineer Wilson slipped away from the main group. His official task was to inspect the station's compatibility with Earth technology, a perfect cover for his real mission. The scanner in his pocket worked silently, collecting data about the station's systems and transmitting it back to Earth in small, encrypted bursts hidden within routine communications. Wilson moved through the less crowded corridors, following the map Reed's team had prepared based on the Council's provided schematics. According to their analysis, there should be a central data processing hub 3 levels down from his current position. He rounded a corner and nearly collided with a tall, insectoid being who clicked disapprovingly and scuttled away. Wilson mumbled an apology and continued on his path, trying to look like he belonged. The door to the data center was unmarked, just as Reed had predicted. Security would be minimal. Why bother with heavy protection when most species on board were carefully vetted allies? Wilson placed his hand on the access panel, using the temporary credentials he'd been given as part of the technical team. To his surprise, the door slid open. Inside, banks of unfamiliar technology hummed and pulsed with light. Wilson quickly attached his scanner to what appeared to be a main terminal and let it work. Screens of data flashed before his eyes, most incomprehensible without translation. But one file caught his attention, a map of the station that didn't match the one provided to the human delegation. This map showed a massive section that didn't officially exist. Wilson downloaded the file and was about to disconnect his device when a symbol flashed across the screen. The same symbol Dr. Miller had discovered in her research of vanished civilizations. The harvest. The door behind him slid open, and Wilson spun around to find himself face to face with Ambassador Thelos. Engineer Wilson, Thelos said, his voice unnaturally calm. This is not part of the authorized tour. Back on Earth, Miller paced the floor of their hidden command center. The data bursts from Wilson's device had been coming in regularly for the past 6 hours, providing valuable information about the Council's systems. But for the past 30 minutes, there had been nothing. Could it be a transmission problem? She asked Jane Porter, who monitored the communications array. Possibly, Porter replied. But all other communications with the delegation are working perfectly. Miller's secure comm unit buzzed. Reed's voice came through, tense and low. Anna, we've decrypted some of the data Wilson sent. You need to see this immediately. 10 minutes later, Miller stared at the images on the main screen, her blood running cold. The hidden section of the Council station contained row upon row of massive weapons, planet killers, if the scale calculations were correct. And there's more, Reed said, his face grim on the video call. The files Wilson accessed included a timetable. Phase 1, diplomatic contact. Phase 2, technology exchange. Phase 3, resource evaluation. Phase 4, harvest preparation. What's Phase 5? Miller asked, though she already suspected the answer. It just says harvest, and according to this timetable, Earth entered Phase 4 the moment our delegation docked with their station. Miller sank into a chair. How long do we have? Days, maybe weeks at most, Reed replied. And with the President and our top military leaders on that station, a technician interrupted, rushing to Porter's side. They spoke in hushed tones before Porter turned to Miller, her face pale. We've just received a new transmission from the station. It's Wilson. The message is heavily encrypted. It took everything. We have to decode it. She pressed a button, and Wilson's voice filled the room, strained and rushed. They know I accessed the files, captured by station security. The Council isn't what they claim. They're harvesters. They identify developing worlds, make contact, offer technology, then strip the planets of resources and enslave or eliminate the population. They've done it hundreds of times. Earth is next. Torres confronted Thelos when I managed to get him the data, but half the delegation has been detained. The weapons are already aimed at Earth. Get Reed. Tell him to activate Contingency Omega. It's our only chance. And find the Arvani. The message we received was from them. There. The transmission cut off abruptly. The room fell silent. Then Miller stood, her decision made. Jane, keep trying to reestablish contact with Wilson or anyone from the delegation who might still be free. Tom, I need everything we have on these Arvani, and this Contingency Omega. She turned to Reed on the screen. James, how fast can you get me access to the Global Defense Network? Reed's expression was grim. You're talking about taking control of Earth's combined military assets without presidential authorization. That's treason. If we don't, Miller replied, there might not be an Earth left to defend. On the council station, President Torres and the remaining free members of his delegation huddled in a maintenance shaft, their diplomatic mission turned into a desperate fight for survival. We need to reach our ship, Torres said, his political polish gone, replaced by the determination of a leader who finally understood the true stakes. We need to warn Earth. Engineer Wilson, his face bruised from his interrogation, nodded. The main docking bay is heavily guarded, but there's a secondary maintenance dock on level 4. If we can reach it, we can't leave without the others, said Admiral Jackson, the military representative. We can't help them if we're all captured, Torres countered. Our priority has to be warning Earth about what's coming. As they carefully made their way through the station's service tunnels, avoiding patrols of security drones, Torres's mind raced. Everything he had believed, all the dreams of humanity's glorious future among the stars, had been shattered in an instant. The Galactic Council was not humanity's welcoming committee to a larger community. It was a predator, and Earth was its prey. On a view screen they passed, Torres caught a glimpse of Thelos addressing the station. The ambassador's friendly demeanor was gone, replaced by cold efficiency. The harvest of Earth will proceed ahead of schedule, Thelos announced. Preparation teams are already in place. All harvesters should report to their assigned sectors within 2 planetary rotations. Torres exchanged grim looks with his companions. The countdown to Earth's destruction had begun. Alarms blared across every military base on Earth. The lunar defense colony went dark first, struck by an energy beam that vaporized its main dome in seconds. Then came the orbital platforms, Earth's first line of defense against asteroids and other space threats, now turning to molten debris raining down through the atmosphere. In the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Commander Reed stood before the assembled military leaders of Earth's combined forces. 12 hours ago, we received confirmation that the Galactic Council's true purpose is the systematic harvesting of developing worlds, Reed said, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around the globe. Thanks to Engineer Wilson and President Torres, we have evidence of their intentions and limited information about their capabilities. He gestured to the main screen, which showed massive council ships entering Earth's solar system. These are harvest vessels. Each one carries enough firepower to level a continent. They will be in striking range of Earth in less than 48 hours. General Martinez, the highest-ranking officer present, stepped forward. What's our defense strategy? Operation Wildfire, Reed replied, bringing up a new display. We've identified a potential weakness in Council technology. Their systems use a form of quantum entanglement for communication that's vulnerable to targeted disruption. How did you discover this? Another officer asked suspiciously. That brings me to our potential ally. Reed nodded to Dr. Miller, who had been standing quietly at the edge of the room. Miller stepped forward. The transmission warning us about the harvest came from a species called the Arvani. They were targeted by the Council centuries ago, but managed to hide a portion of their population. They'd been working from the shadows ever since, gathering intelligence and looking for others who escaped the harvests. She brought up an image of a tall, slender being with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors with each movement. "This is an Arvani. We established contact with them 12 hours ago through a hidden quantum frequency embedded in their original warning message." The military leaders murmured among themselves, skepticism clear on their faces. "And we're supposed to trust these Arvani?" General Martinez asked. At this point, Reed replied bluntly, "We don't have the luxury of distrust. The Arvani have provided us with the specifications for a device that can disrupt Council communications and temporarily disable their weapon systems." Temporarily, Miller emphasized. "It won't stop them, but it might buy Earth enough time to launch a counterattack." Around the world, the resistance plan took shape. While governments tried to maintain order and prevent panic, secret manufacturing facilities worked around the clock to produce thousands of the disruption devices based on the Arvani specifications. In orbit, Earth's remaining military ships prepared for what many believed would be their final battle. Miller worked tirelessly in her lab, coordinating with the Arvani through their quantum link. Their alien allies provided crucial intelligence about Council movements and helped refine the disruption technology. "Why are you helping us?" Miller had asked during their first direct communication. The Arvani representative, who called itself Vela, had responded in a melodic voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Because we remember what it is to be harvested," Vela had said. "Because every species the Council destroys is another light extinguished in a galaxy that grows darker with each passing cycle. And because we believe that together, perhaps we can finally end their reign." Now, as Miller calibrated the master control for the disruption network, she wondered if humanity really stood a chance against an enemy that had perfected the art of conquest over thousands of years. The lab door slid open, and Reed entered, looking exhausted but determined. "The Council ships have increased speed," he reported. "They'll reach Earth in 36 hours. The disruption network will be ready," Miller assured him. "But even if it works perfectly, it will only disable their systems for minutes, maybe an hour at most." Reed nodded grimly. "That's why we're launching Operation Spearhead simultaneously." Miller looked up sharply. "The experimental fusion missiles. They haven't been properly tested." "We're out of options, Anna," Reed said softly. "The Arvani believe they might be powerful enough to damage the Council's harvest ships, especially if we strike while their shields are down." A technician rushed into the lab, face pale. "Commander, Doctor, you need to see this. Now." On the main view screen, a battered Earth shuttle appeared, racing toward the planet with 3 Council pursuit ships close behind. "That's the presidential shuttle," Reed exclaimed. Torres made it out. They watched in horror as energy beams lanced out from the pursuit ships, grazing the shuttle's engines. The small craft tumbled, clearly damaged, but continued its desperate flight toward Earth. "Get me a communication link," Reed ordered. After several tense moments, President Torres' face appeared on screen. Behind him, smoke filled the shuttle's cockpit, and warning lights flashed. "Reed." "Thank God," Torres coughed. "We have critical information. The Council, they fear something." "What do you mean?" Miller asked, stepping into view. "In their secure archives, we found references to a power beyond the edge of the galaxy," Torres explained, his image breaking up as the shuttle's systems failed. "Something the Council is running from, something they're harvesting worlds to prepare for. They call it the..." Static overtook the transmission. When it cleared, Torres was shouting, though only fragments came through. "Coordinates in the data packet. Find them. Only chance." The screen went blank as one of the pursuit ships fired a direct hit on the shuttle's communication array. Reed slammed his fist on the console. "Can we shoot down those Council ships?" "They're out of range of our ground defenses," a technician replied. "But the shuttle will reach our orbital defense perimeter in 3 minutes." They watched in tense silence as the presidential shuttle, trailing debris and fire, raced for Earth's atmosphere with the Council ships still in pursuit. "They're launching missiles," someone shouted. Just as the Council weapons closed in on the crippled shuttle, a barrage of fire from Earth's orbital defense platforms intercepted them. The pursuing ships, suddenly facing unexpected resistance, broke off their attack. The shuttle, badly damaged but intact, continued its descent toward Earth. 2 hours later, in the medical bay of the mountain base, President Torres lay connected to life support machines. He had piloted the burning shuttle through re-entry by himself, the only survivor of the original delegation. The data, he whispered to Reed and Miller. Did you recover it? Miller nodded. Yes, Mr. President. The shuttle's black box was intact. Then there's hope, Torres said weakly. The Council is powerful, but they're afraid. That means they can be defeated. He closed his eyes, strength fading. The coordinates, to the edge, find what they fear. As medical staff rushed in, Reed and Miller stepped outside. Our analysts are already working on the data package, Reed said. But right now, we need to focus on surviving the next 48 hours. Miller's comm unit buzzed. It was the Arvani contact. The Council has deployed their first wave of ground infiltration units, Vela's voice announced. They are targeting your power and communication infrastructure. The harvest has begun. Reed and Miller exchanged grim looks. Earth's fight for survival was no longer approaching. It had arrived. Launch Operation Wildfire, Reed ordered. Now, around the world, thousands of disruption devices activated simultaneously, sending precisely calibrated quantum signals into space. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like stars blinking out, the lights of the approaching Council fleet dimmed. The counterattack had begun. The skies above Earth burned. Council ships, temporarily disabled by the disruption network, had quickly adapted their systems. Now they hung like dark stars in orbit, raining destruction on the cities below. Humanity fought back with everything it had. The experimental fusion missiles had taken out 2 of the smaller harvest vessels, proving that Council ships could indeed be damaged. But for every small victory, Earth's defenders suffered devastating losses. In the underground command center, now operating on emergency power, Dr. Miller worked frantically on the data President Torres had brought back. The president himself had died hours earlier, his final words a whisper about the truth beyond the stars. I've got it, Miller announced, drawing Reed away from the tactical displays, where he coordinated Earth's remaining defenses. The coordinates Torres mentioned, they're not just a location. They're a warning. She brought up a star map on her screen, zooming out until the entire Milky Way galaxy was visible. Here, she said, pointing to a region far beyond the galactic rim. According to the Council's own secret records, there's something out there they've been running from for thousands of years. They call it the Void Bringer. Reed studied the display. What exactly is out there? The records are fragmented, but they describe a force or entity that consumes stars and turns light to darkness. Whatever it is, the Council fears it enough that they've been harvesting worlds for resources and technology to prepare for its arrival. So they're not just conquerors, Reed said slowly. They're running scared. Miller nodded. And that gives us leverage. The Arvani believe. A tremendous explosion rocked the facility, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. Emergency lights flashed red. Council ground forces have breached the outer perimeter, announced a voice over the intercom. All personnel to battle stations. Reed grabbed Miller's arm. We're out of time. What's the plan? Miller's eyes were determined despite the chaos. The quantum communication network. If we can't save Earth, we can at least warn others. The Arvani ship was tiny compared to the Council vessels, designed for stealth rather than battle. It hovered in the shadow of Earth's moon, watching the devastation unfold. Inside, Vela and a small crew monitored Earth's desperate resistance with growing sadness. They had seen this scenario play out dozens of times before. Brave species fighting to their last breath against the overwhelming might of the Council. The humans fight well, observed one of the crew. Better than most. Yes, Vela agreed, but not well enough to win. The iridescent patterns on Vela's skin darkened with emotion. Is the escape vector calculated? Yes, Commander. As soon as we receive Dr. Miller's transmission, we can. The communication console chimed. A human face appeared on screen. Not Miller, but Commander Reed. His uniform was torn and bloody, smoke filling the background behind him. Vela, Reed said urgently. The main facility has been compromised. Dr. Miller is moving to secondary location to complete the transmission. You must be ready to receive and distribute it. We are prepared, Commander, Vela assured him. But perhaps we can extract some of your people. Reed shook his head. No time. Listen carefully. Miller discovered why the Council fears what lies beyond the galaxy. It's not a destroyer. It's a protector. An ancient intelligence that once drove the Council from this galaxy. They've been gathering strength to defeat it when it returns. Gunfire erupted behind Reed. He glanced back before continuing hurriedly. The coordinates aren't just a location. They're a way to contact this entity. That's humanity's last gift to the galaxy. Use it. The transmission cut off as something exploded near Reed's position. Vela stood silent for a moment, absorbing this revelation. Then, decisively, prepared to receive Dr. Miller's transmission and plot a course to these coordinates. It's time we found this protector the Council fears so much. Miller worked alone in the small backup facility, racing against time. The main quantum transmitter had been destroyed, but this smaller unit could still reach across the galaxy if she could keep it powered long enough. She had encoded everything. The evidence of the Council's true nature, the locations of known harvest worlds, the specifications for the disruption technology, and most importantly, the coordinates and contact protocol for the mysterious entity the Council feared. Outside, she could hear the sounds of battle growing closer. Earth's defense forces were fighting valiantly, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. With trembling hands, Miller initiated the broadcast sequence. The quantum transmitter hummed to life, its energy readings climbing steadily. "Come on," she whispered. "Just a few more minutes." The facility shook as something heavy struck nearby. Dust rained from the ceiling, and warning lights flashed on the console. Power fluctuations threatened to abort the transmission. Miller worked desperately, rerouting power from life support and other systems to keep the transmitter functioning. The progress bar on her screen inched forward agonizingly slowly. 75% complete. 76%. The door behind her buckled as something powerful struck it repeatedly. Council shock troops, using some kind of energy battering ram. 83%. 84%. The room shook again, more violently this time. A crack appeared in the ceiling, and warning alarms screamed throughout the facility. 90%. 91%. The door gave way with a screech of tearing metal. Miller didn't turn around. Every second counted now. 95%. 96%. She felt rather than heard them enter the room, the heavy footsteps of Council harvesters approaching from behind. 98%. 99%. For Earth, Miller whispered as her finger hovered over the final transmission key. 100%. She pressed the button as energy weapons discharged behind her. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds at various stages of technological development, the same message appeared simultaneously on communication systems. The Galactic Council is a lie. They harvest worlds. We the Bujit Behe. Flee for your lives. Accompanying the message was a data package, evidence of the Council's true nature, defensive technology specifications, and the coordinates to contact the mysterious entity beyond the galaxy that the Council feared. On dozens of worlds that had received Council ambassadors, the message sparked immediate action. On hundreds more that were still developing, the warning was preserved, remembered, prepared for. The Council's carefully constructed facade of benevolence cracked, then shattered completely. Vela stood on the bridge of the Arvani ship, watching as Earth's resistance finally collapsed. The once blue planet now bore ugly scars of orbital bombardment. The Council harvest ships descended through the atmosphere, beginning their systematic stripping of resources. Yet in the Arvani commander's hand was a small data crystal containing humanity's final gift. Not just a warning, but a path forward, a way to potentially end the Council's reign forever. Plot course to these coordinates, Vila ordered, and send the human message to every world in our network. Their sacrifice will not be in vain. As the Arvani ship slipped away from the solar system, a small Council patrol vessel noticed their departure and moved to pursue. The patrol commander opened a channel. Unidentified vessel, you are ordered to halt and prepare for boarding by authority of the Galactic Council. Vela smiled for the first time in many cycles. Tell your council that their time of harvesting is ending. The humans knew the truth, and now so does the rest of the galaxy. The Arvani ship accelerated, then vanished into faster-than-light travel before the patrol could respond. 3 years later, a Council survey team discovered an abandoned human outpost on Mars. Most of it had been destroyed during a harvest of Earth, but one sealed chamber remained intact. Inside was a simple message, carved into the wall with what must have been the last survivor's final strength. We will return. The survey team reported the message to their superiors, who ordered the chamber destroyed. But one member of the team, troubled by rumors spreading throughout Council space, secretly recorded the message first. The recording joined the growing collection of evidence being shared among Council member species who had begun to question the true purpose of their civilization. And far beyond the edge of the galaxy, something ancient stirred as the Arvani ship approached, carrying humanity's final coordinates and a galaxy's worth of hope for liberation. Humanity had fallen, but their last message continued to spread, igniting a resistance that would ultimately bring the Council's 10,000-year harvest to an end.